Today, a Baird's tapir exhibit that, quite frankly, needs different types of terrain, and I think one of the biggest things it needs to work on. Tapir itself telling you what it thinks about it. In this week. Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome to another Pimp My Habitat. This is the series in Planet Zoo where we take the submissions of the Geekism community and pimp them up. We turn them from Crapitats into habitats, and today we have a submission from Guen who says, hello you, I made this Pimp My Habitat for Geekism. It's for Baird's tapirs. It's too small, so I expanded it, but it's too small and it doesn't fit in my American area I have built, so I need the theme to diversify a little bit. It isn't as realistic as I want to. Hope you can help love the content. Thank you. So there's all sorts of things here. I'm not too sure whether you want it bigger or smaller, but the rule is we never change the size of the exhibit because, you know, these are meant to go back into people's zoos. But this thing definitely needs a bit of work, and I think something to take away here from this shelter is that sometimes less is more, and these pieces, these thatch pieces, are quite square and actually work quite well square. So maybe we should look at going back to more of a square structure. The pool's really quite nice. The foliage is not necessarily wrong as far as the game is concerned, but there can be a lot more of it. I mean, look at this huge open space here with basically nothing in it, and tapirs do spend time in grasslands, but a lot of time also in tropical rainforest, so we can really up that terrain and we can really up that foliage numbers. So let's dive in. Right, so first things first then, this little building here is actually really quite nice, where the staff can enter it. Actually really quite like it. It looks quite similar to something I would do myself. I don't know if it's maybe taken, the idea of which has been taken from something I have done myself, because like I say, it does look a little bit like a Geekism build already, but yeah, I think it's really good. And so all I've done here is lined it all up a little bit better. It's a little bit wonky, and placed a beam underneath there to act a little bit more as a supporting beam. But then let's work now on the actual main shelter. I actually really like this structure here, so we're going to keep the structure that is already there. That's just a single piece that's already in the game like that. It's quite kind of nifty. And then also we have this, like I said, this straw thatch roof that I really like and think this could totally work. I think it really fits the kind of tropical rainforest kind of theme. But as with all of these builds, you've got to make sure that you're not building a big square box, and that's kind of what we've got here. So using different heights for the roofs and using different angles for the roofs. This fence piece was used over there as well, which again was quite nice. And we always try and use some of the building pieces and the building designs that is already there for us. That's the whole point of Pimp My Habitat, rather than just building a whole fresh habitat. It's kind of taking what's already there and kind of polishing it up. So here then, like I say, trying to making this building not just look like a big wooden box. So here, this is going to be the bedding area for them, but I wanted a little sort of looky hole there that people can sort of peek through and see what's going on. And then using that style of wood there to kind of create a custom fence. So one thing I will say about the fences in this game is they weren't really great, and I know I've said this before, that I was begging for sort of a fence tool in these Planet games, and obviously Planet Zoo kind of needs one. But if you can get away from using the in-game fences, you'll find that your buildings, your habitat buildings, will just kind of pop. They just start to look so much more realistic, so much more interesting. So obviously there's nothing wrong with using habitat fencing, and in some places it's kind of needed to be used. But if you can, there are other things you can do. So you can even use scenery pieces here to create your own fence that's maybe a little bit more stylized, a little bit more in keeping with the build. Obviously, you can cover the fence. You can cover the fencing with some rock work or foliage, or you can, create terrain fencing using some like ditches or water, rivers and things like that. So here we've got a combination of a few of those. We use a custom fence there to kind of carry through this almost like stable style build, I think, that we've ended up with here. But again, I definitely think less is more. I think the square nature of this build actually has turned out really quite nicely, and just kind of using some tiered roofing here for both the animals and then mirrored across into the guest area there to be looked under. It really feels like the guests are sort of stepping into the space there for the tapirs. So here then, again, yeah, wanted to kind of cover up. Space-wise, I wasn't too sure what you meant by it being too small. It's actually a perfect size for 2 tapirs that I've got in there now, because I always make sure I put a couple in there, because a lot of the time I was putting one animal in, building the habitat to the size of that animal, and then putting a second one in, it being too small. That was something I had with the pygmy hippos, one of the very first ones we did. So I put 2 in straight away, and space-wise they're fine. So all I've done here really is kind of pulled the space in a little bit using these rocks. So even though the exhibit hasn't changed its actual size, the habitat hasn't actually changed its size. There is a little less space for them to get around in, and it means they spend more time in the face of the guest, more time in the actual eye line of the guest, which is another important factor. Terrain-wise, you're a little bit off with the terrain. There was too much long grass and not enough dirt. In fact, they kind of want this sort of rainforest floor style dirt. So we're using that here, and it turns out really quite nice. I think some sand and rock there for the pond, and then some tracks here using the dirt and the sand to kind of give an area where the animals will run to. Here, getting rid of the bedding because we've got bedding further out now, and just replacing some of the enrichment items there. One thing I'm going to be doing with Pimp My Habitat from now on is I'm not going to be placing any new enrichment items down, because a couple of people pointed out in the comments of previous ones that if this is being used in franchise, I may well be putting things down that people can't use. So excellent point. So from now on, whatever's in there is what we're going to be using. If that does mean that the enrichment stat is a little low, then that's just kind of how it is, because again, this could be used in a franchise or a challenge mode where that kind of stuff just isn't unlocked yet. Moving on finally to foliage, which luckily is unlocked throughout parks, no matter where you start them or how you start them. And really, we just go to town with the foliage here. The tapirs can have 100% coverage if you wanted to. Like I say, they are more than happy at home in heavy foliage, and they love sort of rooting around it to find food for themselves. So we're really going to town here. We're keeping it really lush around the water there, and then all pretty much along this back wall. So we've got the rock work there, and then also there's a little bit of this gabion fencing still that's fine. We've kept it in place, but we've pretty much covered it completely in foliage, and that's really one of the main things. If animals, personally, the way I think about this, if animals are happy with the foliage, get it in there, get it covered, because it really does make these habitats pop. It is the difference between a big green square and somewhere that looks lush and vibrant for these animals to live, and also just makes it more interesting for the guests as well. That's that's a main thing we have to think about in these zoos. We really want it to be good for the animals and for the guests. Finally then, this the foliage pit. Standard stuff here, you've seen me do it before. In fact, a lot of these Pimp My Habitats are going to follow a kind of similar play, make sure the terrain's right, make sure the foliage is right, and then just kind of naturalize up some of these features. So this foliage pit, rather than it just being a big sort of octagon there on the floor, we're going to build it into some rock work that then makes its way down to the pond. Quite a quick one, this quick turnaround really. Some stuff there was already great. The water, the shelter just needed a little bit of a tweak, but we went from a rather bland green square to a lush, vibrant, tropical paradise for the tapirs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you would like to submit your own habitat to Pimp My Habitat, all you have to do is put it onto the workshop with the hashtag Pimp My Habitat. Make sure the description tells me a little bit about what you're happy about and what you're not happy about, and also make sure your description tells me what the animal is meant to be that goes in it. I've had quite a few that look great and I really feel like I could do something with them, but it doesn't say anywhere what animal's meant to go in it, which obviously makes a big factor as to how it's put together, so please make sure you've added that. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Till the next one, be good.